Determining how your rates and volumes for rail movements stack up to competitors in your markets is important. This importance is best determined by asking yourself two basic questions about your rail traffic. First question is, do you know when you're being put at a competitive disadvantage in your markets? Another question is, do you know when your competitors are working with their railroads to increase their share of your markets? This is important information to know because in order to increase market share as well as your negotiation leverage, you need to fully understand your rail markets. Let's use an example of this. What you have on the screen is a scatter graph produced by the Rail Rate Checker Internet Database program literally in seconds. And what it is showing is plastic pellets movements into the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And movements are originating in three primary producing areas. On the left side of the graph, marked with a star, are movements from Chicago to Minneapolis, and these are under 500 miles and between $2,500 and $7,000. On the right side of the graph are movements from Alberta, Canada, which are marked with a plus sign, and Houston, Texas, which are marked with an X. And what the graph is showing is that the movements from Alberta have rates that are very comparable to movements out of Chicago, even though the distance to this market is twice as long as it is from Chicago. It's also showing that movements out of Houston, which are marked with an X, are operating at a competitive disadvantage to movements that are being shipped out of Alberta. This is extremely important information to know for your rail negotiations, primarily because railroads do not mind you saying that you have high rates. What they do mind is you demonstrating that they're putting you at a competitive disadvantage in your markets. But we have a lot of information, a lot of rates on this graph. Let's click the details button and we'll take a look at averages. This table is showing that there are 1,680 carloads of plastic pellets moving from Alberta to Minneapolis, and it's traveling at rates of $3,674. That rate is almost one half of the rate out of Houston, and that's going to be a primary reason why the volumes out of Alberta are so much greater than they are out of Houston. But we also would like to look at this information over time, so we're going to click on the years of 2010 and 11, and we get everything summarized out of these regions. And the second table below shows us the rates for each year from each one of these origins. And it shows when we look at Houston that the rates have increased 9.5%, which is less than the rate increases from the other regions. And what this is demonstrating is that the railroads appear to be recognizing that the rates are putting them at a competitive disadvantage, but what it's also showing is that in order to capture additional market share, they're going to need to be reducing their rate, not just minimizing rate increases. Railroads thrive on a lack of rate transparency, and what that means is that the shipper needs to provide that transparency. Once you have this type of information on your markets, it makes for much more productive negotiations with railroads. To better understand your markets, you need better market intelligence, and the Rail Rate Checker Internet Data Program provides that. Rail Rate Checker, don't move rail freight without it. The cost to your company can be just too large.